Calling in from Costa Rica is Raven, who has questions about abortion, Gaza, and other points I've made. Let's make this easy, Raven. I've already talked about Gaza tonight. Let's just ask me an issue about abortion, and we'll move on to other callers after that.
Hey, sure. Well, first, thank you for both Matts to have me here. The secondary Matt, what's interesting co-host, that I must say that the second Matt
like him.
was very interesting.
I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. Anyhow, just in matters of abortions, that was one quick question. How familiar are you with the human rights instruments and the application and ratification of them throughout, this continent, America? Knowing
human rights instruments?
Yeah. Starting from the Declaration of Human Rights.
Oh, you're talking like the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the United Nations and stuff?
Yeah. How familiar are you with him?
I've read them and I've talked about them, but I mean, I haven't memorized or anything.
Okay, that's fine. There's a particular case which I would recommend you to give a thorough read. It happened here in my country, in Costa Rica. It's called the Artavia and others versus Costa Rica case that was presented towards the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. I don't know if you're familiar what the Inter-American Court of Human Rights is.
Nope.
Okay, so America, as the continent from Argentina to the United States and the Caribbean, we, after the Declaration of Human Rights, we actually established the American Convention on Human Rights, which are the main basis to which the human rights are applied here. However, the United States has not ratified it. Just by saying all this, this particular case was in regards of Costa Rica made IVF practice illegal for about 12, 13 years. A whole series of couples who wanted to use IVF because they wanted to get pregnant and have kids and have a family, burned the whole process internally in the country against that provision. So once they did that, they took that case to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. It took about 2-3 years of deliberations, of analysis, etc. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights came back and said the provision on IVF, or in vitro fertilization, is a violation of fundamental human rights, particularly those that refer to self-determination, which include bodily autonomy. Then it also entered into the debate of when does life start from the basis of human rights. I recommend you that read. It's extremely thorough because it basically just says, nope, conception, the idea of life starts with conception is erroneous from a human rights standpoint, because you cannot uniquely and exclusively give credit to that belief over other perceptions of how life can start. And in order to protect fundamental self-determination rights, which include a whole series of them, of women, abortion must never be legal. And from that point on, things have started slowly moving in Latin America. But I recommend that read to you.
Raven?
Sorry.
You're saying they concluded abortion should never be legal, or abortion should never be illegal?
Illegal. Should never be illegal.
I appreciate that you're calling in to give all this information, but I don't know. So no offense to Costa Rica or any human rights court, but I don't know what difference this makes.
It actually makes a lot of difference in a more profound conversation, which we could say, United States talks a lot about human rights and civil rights, but one thing is talking about them, and another thing is implementing them, making sure effective tools. Let's be realistic. Your Bill of Rights from the United States, from a constitutional standpoint, they're obsolete in its, not in its essence, but it's in its structure. So we've grown to apply all those civil rights that the United States has, except Article 2. That's another discussion. Or Article 2, or Article 2, Amendment 2. You guys call it Amendment 2. We call it Articles. Anyhow. So from that perspective, even though in Latin America, the majority of abortion is illegal, we just had recently Mexico, Argentina, Chile, somewhat Colombia, Uruguay, that have changed that in the last 10, 15 years, maybe. And more recent.
Somehow, Raven, somehow I'm missing the point.
Okay, so let me just focus on that, felony. The major discussion in matters of abortion and in implementing the protection of what you guys call bodily autonomy and what we describe as self-determination clearly shows that in the United States, there's a lack of interest of protecting human rights to its own population. And that tells a big ass tell. I know you would agree on this. And
I don't know that I would agree on this. I think, so I don't think it's easy to say that there isn't interest in human rights just because the United States keeps getting one particular human right wrong.
I wouldn't say one. There's sufficient historical evidence with how many human rights have been violated within the borders of the United States to its own people, but that's a profound and different conversation.
Sure, but
admittedly, we can say you're not as worse or as bad as Russia or China.
Oh my God, the fucking audio drives me nuts. Apart from abortion, what other human rights is the United States getting wrong now that we're not addressing?
Well, first of all, the fundamental right of adequate living spaces for many populations, especially vulnerable populations, Native Americans, Afro-Americans, and others. Freedom of press.
I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, so fundamentally, the right of having a house or having an adequate space for living is recognized as one of the fundamental human rights. It is
how is the United States how is the United States denying someone that right?
Let's look at, for example, the experience of Native Americans in the United States, where
are Native Americans, Raven, are Native Americans in the United States denied the right to own homes or rent homes?
In major degree, yes. We see that.
No, Raven. No, that's simply not true. There is no United States law that prohibits Native Americans from having a right to own property or have housing.
So, based on the Census Bureau, this is data about 4 or 5 years ago.
Raven, the Census Bureau takes numbers about what is with regard to people. There's nothing in any Census Bureau thing that you're going to point to that is a law that in any way prohibits Native Americans from owning property. You are extrapolating from a situation to say, they don't care enough about human rights. I am fine. I'm not saying I'm fine with it. I would agree that generally Americans don't care enough about human rights in the right way, in all the right ways. I think they're wrong on trans rights. I think they're wrong on abortion rights. I could make a list of all this stuff like that. I don't understand the point of what you're calling about.
Maybe what I was trying to have is a more broader type of conversation in that sense. In matters of that point of the point that we were trying to make.
Raven.
What?
Raven. We said you were going to ask me something about abortion. Do you have any other questions about abortion? Because if not, I'm moving on.
All right. So just so we can move on and let other calls come in. The fundamental question is in that sense would be, what would your perspective be in the next election and the next presidency in regards of abortion rights in North America and the United States? What could you see that could happen in that matter?
I don't even understand what you're asking. Are you asking me to make a prediction about what's going to happen? Because I'm not fucking doing that.
I would call prediction more as of a potential analysis as where is and how could United States reach a better conclusion to that problem.
Are you asking me how I think we could solve the problem and reinstate abortion in the United States? Seriously?
As yes, that's your analysis or your own personal opinion. I would like to see.
The Americans need to get out and vote for people who will instantiate in their state constitutions a right to abortion, as Ohio just did, and as 7 or 6 other states have now done. And we need to make sure that we don't let Trump back into office and work to actually stack the Supreme Court to undo some of the decisions they've made. It's the same shit I've been saying for years.
And from a federal standpoint, would you agree of having a federal implementation of rule of law that would force that situation more evenly throughout the states?
That question doesn't make any sense to me. Are you asking me if I would support a federal constitutional guarantee of a right to abortion? Yes, as I've said for decades. But I don't think it's likely to happen. We just lost ground here, and I live in a country where a man who's indicted on a gazillion charges, who's the biggest idiot and liar in the history, is polling ahead of the current president. What I want to happen and what's likely to happen are two completely different things. But if all you're going to do is call and ask me if my opinions have changed in the last 20 years, not really.
And just one last question before I let you go. Would you, or how is the United States and activism in the United States approaching the ratification of those necessary instruments of human rights through legislative means? Do you see a future where the United States would equate to other countries that we have ratified those instruments and utilize them to protect civil rights?
I have no clue what you just asked me.
Okay. Then let me just quickly reverse.
I think you just asked me, do I see a future in which the U.S. is going to agree with you and other people on human rights?
Not just agree, I mean ratify them through the legislative means.
I have no fucking idea, and neither does anybody else, because the world is on fucking fire right now. And while I would love for human rights to be the fucking focus, it cannot be, because everything else is falling the fuck apart.
Fundament.
To call and ask me if I think the U.S. is going to do better on civil rights in the future, I fucking hope so. But right now, we're going backwards. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm going to move on now, Raven.
A fortune teller, but more on an opinion. But I appreciate your time. I apologize if maybe translation-wise We find it.
It's not translation. It's just you're expecting me to give an opinion about that. Oh, here's what I think's going to happen. I have no fucking clue. I can't even tell you if we're going to resume sanity and not elect Trump. And you're asking me about, do I think we're going to codify and robustly stand behind human rights declarations? I have no idea. I'd love to say we do. We got lots of work to do. I can't possibly make a prediction on that. I don't see any likelihood of any improvement at all right now.
And
Whoops. Yeah, I'm the guy that said that Trump wouldn't win back in 2016 on stage. Was very wrong. I'm the guy that said Roe v. Wade would never be overturned. Very wrong. If you're wanting to use my opinion as a barometer, you might be using it. Whatever I say, just bet on the opposite. But we have, I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm going to derail for just a minute, and then I'm going to come to you, Kevin. So I appreciate you waiting. The Republican Party is a festering cesspool of children, selfish children who do not understand or value human freedoms or dignity. In the past 36 hours, one Republican senator got up out of his chair threatening to fist fight a witness in a Senate hearing. The former Speaker of the House is now being accused of physically assaulting another representative. He denies it. Matt Gaetz has now brought charges against him. Marjorie Taylor Greene is still an incredible idiot who decided to try to age shame a Democratic representative and school her on something, only to have that 80-year-old school the fuck out of Marjorie Taylor Greene for being an idiot, because just because the House voted for a continuing resolution doesn't mean that we're not still on the verge of a government shutdown, because the Senate still has to approve it, and then Biden has to sign it. So Marjorie made a stupid, big surprise, accusation against someone and was ageist about it, suggesting that because they were 80, they needed to retire, when the reality is that Marjorie is a stupid, monumental piece of shit who should resign. But I can't predict anything right now. All I can predict is that I'm going to have more shit to talk about next week. That I don't see a lot of things getting better. And oh, by the way, in addition to, I'd love for there to be a wonderful stand on human rights by the United States, there's a war in Ukraine and a war in Gaza. And if you think that we're not involved or not going to be involved, you're wrong. We're going to have to be involved. And there's no solution to this shit. No, simple or easy solution. This isn't just we'll just go over and bomb the shit out of somebody and we're done. Talk about weapons of mass destruction. Now we're screwed in many ways. Oh yeah, and there's still climate change. I care about human rights probably more than the average person. We don't have time right now. It would be a waste of my time to sit here and speculate about whether or not there's going to be the United States doing a better job on human rights issues. It would. I apologize, Raven, for my obvious frustration. You're a good person who's interested in human rights. Apart from informing people and getting them out to vote, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can say I'm more optimistic about voting after this last election than I have been for a little while.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer for The Line and avid candy eater. Hey, if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so now on Patreon or as a channel member with tiers specific to supporting specific shows and hosts. And it also supports our ability to expand programming going forward. You could also leave a super thanks down below, get a little special highlighted comment, and I'll tell you what, you could hit like and you could hit subscribe. Now, here are some video suggestions so we can fudge that algorithm. Go with one of ours. Forget everyone else on YouTube. I'm begging.